All right, so today I'm going to talk about a feature that's available on Microsoft Excel 2013 and 2016, Windows version only. It's called Flash Fill. Flash Fill is a pattern recognizer, and a lot of things that you could do with text functions, you can actually do those with Flash Fill, and then some extra that you possibly wouldn't be able to do with text functions, you could still do with Flash Fill. So let's see what I'm talking about. So I have this spreadsheet and last names and a middle name. And a common thing that you might want to do is combine first and last names together. So I'll go here and type the first and last name of the first person. I go to the next line. And then I want to keep doing this for everybody else, right? So what I do, I go under Data tab, and then there is this button called Flash Fill. So you click on that, or the shortcut is Control E. So Flash Fill, and there I have it. All first and last names combined like that. Other possible options here, if I wanted to do first name, middle name, and last name. Again, I'm going to press Control E from now on instead of pressing this. And there we have it. First name, middle name, last name combined, right? I could even do something like this. So if I want the middle name with a period, no problem. Just like that, I'm getting all the results. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind with Flash Fill, it does not work like formulas. So this is similar to somebody actually typing the results here in the cell. So it's not going to be like if you change the first name here, it's going to update here, unlike formulas. So once you did it, you did it. That's the results you got. Now, what other things you could do with Flash Fill? So for example, if I wanted to have the first name and the first initial of the last name, something like that, I can use Flash Fill, which is again this button or Control E, and there I have it. First name and the first letter of the last name and a period right after that. I could even do it in a different order. So if I want the last name's first letter and then the first name following that, Control E, there it is, we get the results. So once in a while, Flash Fill is not going to give you the results you're looking for. So for example, if I had this middle initial, it was F, and the last name is an F. If I type something like this and I do Control E, so what I'm getting, basically the first name that's followed by the first initial of the middle initial in this particular case, and that's what it went with. Now, what if I wanted that to be the last name? Well, I'm going to do Control Z, undo, and sometimes you'll provide an example wherever it didn't work. For example, the second one or the third one didn't work. So I'm going to go with the second one. So I'll do this, and then our period, and then we do our Control E, and now we gave enough examples so you can actually recognize what a pattern is, and we get what we need out of that. So again, you can build any combination of whatever it is you have to do. So if I wanted the first letter from this one, the first letter from this one, the first letter from this one, again, Control E. And again, it did not recognize the pattern the first time, so I do Control Z to undo, and then I provide another example, which would be this, Control E. So there we have it. It works. That's our Flash Fill. So I'm going to go ahead and just combine first and last names here. A few examples here for you, how it actually works. Control E again. There we have it, first and last names combined, right? Now, moving on to the second example. So in the second example, we're going to go backwards. So let's say we have first, middle initial, and last names combined. Okay, so now I'm going to go backwards, right? So I'm going to take the first name, Control E. I'm getting the first names. If I want the middle initial, P and period, I run that. If you didn't want the period after the middle initial, you could obviously just type your P and Control E. There we have it. And then we have the last name. Control E. We're getting all the last names just like that. So we can also split the text, first, last name, and middle initial. Now, if you're aware of text to columns, you can also do this using text to columns, right? So I highlight this column, text to columns, and I'm going to choose delimited options. I'm going to do next and uncheck tab, and our delimiter is the space. So I'm going to do space. Now, in my particular case, I also want to get rid of that period. So I'm going to do other and a period right there. Next, finish. And that's going to split my first, last name, and middle initial. So we can also use that to accomplish this particular task. Now, where flash fill shines is this example, the third example. Right now, what I have is first and last names column, well, full names column, let's call it this. And some names are first and last names, and some names are first name, middle initial, and the last name. And I want to split my columns. So I'm going to go ahead and type the first name. Now, first of all, let's kind of see what the problem is if we use text to columns, right? So I'm going to do this text to columns. Next, I'm going to choose my space as my delimiter, hit next, finish. And what happened is we split it by the space, and then the names that had just the first and last names, they got one column first, one column last. But whoever was the middle initial, now it has this middle column here, and the last name sits here in the other column. So that's no good for us. So I'm going to undo that and use flash fill to get this done. So Control E. So that's the first name. So that's no news for us. That works just fine. Now I'm going to try to get the last names. And you can see that flash fill had no problem figuring out that, well, you probably don't want this middle initial in the middle. So we just wanted the last name. So we were able to retrieve first and last names. Now, what if we want the middle initial? So I'm going to go here in this middle initial and do L period. And then I'm going to do Control E. Now, you can see how it was able to retrieve middle initials for all middle initial cases, but it is not able to figure out what to do with these other cases because we shouldn't be really using flash fill for those, right? So what we can do in this particular case, we can filter this result out to just leave what we need. So one way for me, I could just type something up. Interesting. So I just typed the name on top and it just removed the ones that I didn't want. That's something I've learned right in the middle of doing this. So that's interesting. That was weird. So that worked just like that. So that's our middle initial here. So going to the next example, I was actually going to go and filter by everything that does not contain a period, and then select everything and clear that, and then uncheck the filter. That would get us here, but apparently there's a faster way to do it. So there we are. Moving on to the next example. So I'm going to my address example. You can see we have the street address, city, state. Obviously you can combine things. So if you want like city, state, and a zip code 95354. Hopefully I didn't mistype anything. So if you do mistype, it's not going to work, right? Because it's not going to see the pattern you're trying to do. So there it is. That's our state, comma separated with our city, and then the zip code following that. So we can obviously do something like that. But again, where it shines is, let's say we're trying to split some of this text. So I'm trying to split the address, the number, from the actual street address. So I just go and type 3360, and then I do Control E. Oops, didn't do Control E. So there we are. That gets us the street number. Now I can also go and do Denison Street. And then do Control E. There we are. So we're getting basically the remaining part of the address out of it. There we are. All good. So that's kind of nice and easy way of doing it. If you had to do it with functions, that would be a lot more complicated than that. Again, possible, but complicated. Another thing, let's say we want to just have Denison and we want street, road, lane separated into a separate column, right? So again, I'm going to go and type Denison. I'm going to do my Control E and see, it obviously doesn't know what I'm trying to do. So right now it's looking at this and it sees that I want the second word. So it gets me the second word out of this too. But that's not really what I wanted. So I'm going to do Control Z and provide another example. Clay. That's this. The second street. So I'm going to do flash fill again. So there we are. So now we're getting what we need out of it. Just like that. So I'm curious about this one. So what happened here? So we're good. That works just fine. So now we go back to the top, and if I wanted to get, I'm sorry, it's a little messy here. I should probably be more organized, but you get the idea. So I'm gonna do street and Control E, flash fill. See, road, lane, whatever, avenue, terrace. So that's pretty awesome that we can do this. Now moving on to our emails. Let's see, we have some emails here. So if I wanted to just get the domain name out of this, and I type .com flash fill. There we have it, all the domain names separated in its own column, right? No problem with that. You can also do case conversions. So what I mean by that, let's just copy and paste this here. Let's say I wanted to convert this to have all lowercase emails. So there we have it. We can also do case conversions. So we took the upper cases and convert them to all lower cases by providing our examples. So that's kind of nice. Let's look at this phone number examples. So we have some telephone numbers. Now I want to reformat my telephone numbers, and I want them to be in this particular format. So 209-550-5463. So, and then flash fill, and there we have it, all reformatted like this. And we have all of our phone numbers in this new format, in this new column. If you just wanted to remove the hyphens, obviously you could have done that too. 209-550-5463, right? And then just flash fill, and that gets us our column of numbers with no extra stuff in it. So you could also get, let's say if I just want the area code out of the phone number, I do 209 flash fill. There it is, 720, 602. We get the area codes. We can also get the middle 3 digits if you wanted to, or the last 4 digits, or whatever you have to do. So it should be able to handle most of these things just fine. So that's pretty awesome too. So that's our flash fill on telephone numbers. Going to dates, so it can do some date extraction too. Keep in mind, when it works with dates, it does not understand the date because flash fill is entirely for text. So it's doing text recognition out of this. So what I mean by that, if I was trying to extract a year and I type 31 and then I do flash fill, this will work just fine. So I'm getting all the years out of this completely fine. But if I try to do something like 1931 and then do flash fill, so 1930, 1936, 1928, right? So 1950, 1937. Now I'm trying to find out some that are not 19s. Do we have any dates that are not 19s? Well, let's make something up. So I'm going to undo this and let's try to create something in 2017 or something like that, or 20 something, right? So I'm going to do 3, 6. So we'll do 2001, right? So there it is. So now I go here, 1931, I do flash fill, and you can see that 2001 is 1901, because what flash fill did, it said, okay, so you want to add 2 extra things here, 19, to my date, and then you want to just extract the last 2 numbers out of it, or the year part out of it. So it did 31 and then it tacked 19 to the beginning of each one, so it doesn't really recognize that this is in 2000. A couple of ways you can still make flash fill work by reformatting your dates. So you can just format your dates so you have the 4-digit year in there. I guess we're gonna have to do some custom formatting. Date, so let's see, where is a 4-digit? Something like that should work. So there it is. Now we have this. So now let's try to do flash fill again. And now, because it sees it as a part of the text, it's going to actually extract it out of that. Now, usually like this type of things, it's best to handle that using like year function. And then it will look at the date and figure out what the year is. But again, you can do flash fill examples on those. Just realize that it doesn't recognize the date. It just looks at the text of the date and it extracts something out of it. Hopefully that makes sense. So going back to this one. So here we have some credit card numbers. So let's say we want to get the last 4 digits of our credit card numbers. So I do 5679. And then I do flash fill. So that seems to work in general. So we get the last 4 digits out of it. The only problem you may have with situations like this, see if this credit card number, the last 4 digits was 0385. Now 0385 is, as a number, we dropped a 0 in the beginning, or this one 0658. Now if we want to keep it as a 0 in the beginning, we have to make sure that we don't do this as a number, we do this as text. So what we can do apostrophe 5679 to convert it to text, and then we can do our flash fill, and now we're getting the last 4 digits as text, which means that our zeros should stay just fine, no problem. So again, you could get the first 4 digits, the middle some digits, whatever you want out of this using your flash fill. And obviously you could combine different things together. You could also convert like this text to a number, so 006. So I do flash fill. So that didn't work because, again, it works with the looking at a pattern. So right now it says, okay, so the 6 is this 6 out of this, so 4 out of this. So I'm going to undo and then provide it, hopefully, a second example of what I'm trying to do flash fill. And sometimes it does not recognize what I'm trying to do. So it failed because it couldn't see the pattern I'm going for. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to just remove that 6 and try it like this. And now, no problem. So it knows this is what I'm trying to extract. I'm basically converting it to a number, and 006 became just 6, right? Now, the better way probably of doing this, well, there are a few different ways. So one way you could really highlight your whatever this data is that you have. And if you go under this exclamation sign and hit here, you can convert to number. and that will basically just do that. Or what I like to do, I just get the column, go text to columns, next, finish, and that's it. Just make it all numbers. All right, going to our next example, tracking. So obviously using flash fill, you could have removed all the blanks in the middle. So if I didn't want the blanks, I could just type an example that does not include any blanks in it in my tracking number like this, and then use my flash fill, and that should get me all, tracking numbers without having the blanks. Now you could do this also just by getting this column and doing find and replace. So I can do find, select, replace, and then I can say, you know what, let's search all the spaces. Let's make sure there's nothing in there, spaces, and I'm replacing it by nothing. So I'm going to replace all. That's going to accomplish the same thing as I had here. Now, what you would not be able to do using find and replace is if you wanted to have this entire number combined, excluding the last 7. So if I want to get something like this out of that, so I want to have this and a 7, the last digit should be with a space, right? I can't do it with find and replace because it's just going to replace all the spaces. But with flash fill, no problem. So I'm getting removed all the spaces before, but here I still have the space for the last digit over there. So moving on to this next example, case. So you can also, I've already talked about case conversion, how we can convert everything to lowercase. We can also do like proper casing. So if I just type like this, see the first word is a lowercase. I'm typing both words with uppercase first letter. So I do flash fill. I'm getting all the words with an uppercase first letter, which you could also do using proper function, right, in Excel. Again, I'm not really talking about functions that much in this particular tutorial because it's about flash fill. I'll talk about them in a separate tutorial at some point, but right now that's our flash fill example of doing this. We can also do all uppercase if we wanted to. If we do field something like this, no problem. So we're getting all of those converted to our uppercase. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, maybe I'll keep that. Moving on to our next example. So let's see some cases when flash fill will and will not work. So for example, like here I have something that's the height basically in feet and inches, and I want to separate this to be like 5 in one column and 5 the inches in a separate column. So I'm just gonna do 5 and do flash fill and see how we get 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 and 6. So we get the first one in a separate column. So we're getting the numbers, and then I want the second 5. So now if I do flash fill, it's gonna think, well, you still want the same thing, right? That doesn't work. So I'm gonna provide a second example, 5 and 3, flash fill, and 5, 3, 1, 5, 5, 10. So there we are. So now we separated those columns. This one is the first column with all the numbers, and the inches are in their own column with all the numbers in it. So that works just fine, which is beautiful. Now, what other things we could do? So if I wanted to get the first part of the number, 164, out of it, I do flash fill. See, I'm getting those 236, 104, 235. Now, again, keep in mind that it's not really doing numbers. It's looking at the text, and it goes using the text itself. So right now, the pattern it's recognizing is you have some text, then you have the period, and you have some other text. So it gets the text before the period, which is the number part we're getting. Now, in some cases, because of that recognition, it's gonna fail. So what I mean by that, if I do the 0.6 out of this and I do flash fill, you can see that, well, that did not really work very well. So let's try to provide a second example. Oops. 0.7 and try to do flash fill again, and you can see how it extracted now the part after the period 030306, but we may have some issues here. So if I scroll down, see, like this number doesn't have a period after that, so now it does not know what to do in that case, and it's getting this. So I'm gonna do Control Z again. So let's say that's our number. So I'm gonna try to provide an example for a whole number in here. So we have this 150, and I'm gonna say in this case it's a 0. So I'm gonna do flash fill, and let's try to see how it handled it. So these are fine. This is fine. This one is still not fine. See, it's not able to recognize the pattern, even though I'm providing an example for this as well. So in this cases, again, you want to use functions. Generally, when you're dealing with numbers, possibly best to use functions to get what you're looking for. So I guess the correct way to handle it is to use the int function. So int function, unlike the other function, is basically just truncating the rest. So we could technically use round down for this as well, which should work just fine, but this int works just fine. So basically we're dropping whatever's after the period using int function, and if we want to get the remaining part, we can use mod function, and we'll take our number and say if we divide it by 1, what's the remainder. So we're gonna do 1, so the remainder is 0.6. So 164 is gone, the remainder is whatever is left over, and now we're not gonna have to worry with these 0 cases. It works just fine. So those are some cases when flash fill is not going to actually work very well, and you'll have to opt out with functions. Another example of flash fill not doing a great job. So let's say I have this and I'm trying to separate my year from the make and the model, right? So I'm going to type 2004 flash fill. So that didn't work very well, but that shouldn't be an issue. So we can go and provide a second example here, flash fill. And that's okay, so that works just fine. So we got the year. Now let's try to get the make, and that's where we're gonna have some problems. So if I do Ford and I do flash fill, obviously it's just gonna get the second word, which is fine here, fine here, fine here. But here, the make is the second and the third word. So naturally, what we want to do, we want to just go and provide a second example when it didn't work. So something like this, and I use flash fill, and that works, this works. Now see, this should be just the Jeep part, it shouldn't be the Grand Cherokee part. So, and now what are we gonna do? So we're gonna have to provide an example for this to be just one word, and then we're gonna do this, and now that's it. It doesn't know what to do because it's too confusing. So there's no way to know, is it gonna get the first word or is it gonna get the second and third word to get the make? This is a case where flash fill is not going to work. So for something like this to handle, if you're trying to find a solution, would probably be to have a list of the makes that are available. So I haven't tried this, but what I did, I just went online and I just did a list of, different car brands, and basically I got this and I copied and pasted it from like some website that showed up, the first thing that shows up, and this is what I get. So I don't want any of those logo things, so I'm gonna highlight this, go under home and do replace, and what I'm doing, I'm replacing space logo with nothing. So which will drop this remaining part. So replace all. So replacements are done. So that replaced that. Now I'm gonna go ahead and go under data and go remove duplicates, and I don't have any headers, so that should be fine. So I've removed my duplicates. So this one is weird, that shouldn't be there. So now let's say I have a list of automobile manufacturers. So to make this simpler to explain, I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna paste it here on the side so we can see. Oh, that was no good. So copy, go back here and paste, Control V. So now I have this list of cars, and basically I want to get the make for each car. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna search for each one of these makes in my text, and if I find it, if I'm gonna search this, it's not gonna find in this text, right? Search for this, I'm not gonna find it in this text. If I search for Ford, I'm gonna find it in it. So if I do find it, I just want to pick whatever I found and put Ford right here. I'm gonna do it step by step. We have to use an array, so that part is kind of gonna get a little complicated, but to get the idea how this is gonna work, if I go and say equals match and search for this Acura in this text, right? So I'm gonna just lock just in that one cell, and I'm doing an exact match and I'm closing. Now the thing with a match is that when you search, it's gonna actually look for text that's exactly what you're searching for. So if I search for Ford in this particular case, it's still not gonna find Ford in there because it's not exactly Ford. But what I can do, I can do a lookup which will start with basically like a contains type of lookup. And what I mean by that, I will do a star in quotes because it's text, and then I'll concatenate with an and sign that the brand part, and then do another and sign to another concatenate another star after that. So I'm putting one star before and one star after the text with concatenation here. And if I double click now and send this down, you can see that for Ford, I was able to actually find it. And it was basically here. So I was able to search and find, and there it was. I found Ford. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's our match function. That's what I'm getting out of it. So how am I going to use this in my advantage, right? So the way I'm going to use this in my advantage is that once I find something, then I'm going to use this function called equals is number, and on whatever the solution is. And see, it wasn't able to find, it's not a number, so it's going to give me false. This one, when it finds it, it's going to say true, right? So now true is the one I found. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to search through this range of trues and falses and try to find the true in it. So if I do equals match, and what I'm going to search for is true, comma, in this range here of trues and falses, F4, comma, and I want an exact match. So this is going to be that the 16th thing in here was actually true. So that's what we're getting. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use an index function on this range of brands I have, F4 to lock that, and then I'm going to use that 16 to pull the Ford out of it. So all of that I just explained kind of step by step. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, don't worry about this. This is primarily about flash fill, but I'm trying to give you another example how you would deal with something like this, right? So now what I'm going to have to do is do this whole thing that I've explained in a single formula. So I'm going to go here and start with my first thing I said. Let's search for this brand in basically in my text over here, right? That's what I was searching for. So I'm going to do equals match, but instead of searching the first one, I'm going to have to search for all of them, right? We went and searched for all of these brands in this single cell. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, let's take all of these brands, and I'm going to do F4 to lock it. And I'm going to search for it inside of this cell right here that I'm looking at. And I'm going to do another comma, and it's going to be a 0, an exact match type. Now, if you remember, when I was doing this match, I didn't just search for the brand here. I also tagged that concatenation of stars. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to say star and then after this entire range, I'm going to do another and another star after that. And this is going to search for this brand inside of this text. And if it includes that text in it, I'm going to get something out of that. So right now I'm going to press F9 on this to see what I'm getting. So I'm getting, see, NA, all of this, and then I get that 1, which is what I was getting. Now, be careful with F9. Keep in mind, if you do F9, you want to do Control Z, undo, to get back to your formula. Otherwise, if you hit Enter, it's going to basically hard code those values in your formula. So that's what I did. So that would be the range of this NAs. Now, the next thing I did, I put this isNumber function to convert it to true or false, right? So that's exactly what I'm going to do. isNumber around this whole thing. So now if I just take a look and see what happened here, F9, see, I'm getting false, 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 false. And at some point, one of them is hopefully true. There it is. This one in the middle is true. That's the one when I was able to find Ford inside of this text, right? So again, not forget to do Control Z. So that gives me that true and false column that I had over here, only it's an array range. Now what I did after that, I did this match function to find out which one was the true out of that range, right? So I'm gonna do exactly that same thing, only in my array. So this is what gives me that range, which gives me trues or falses. So I'm gonna do Control X to cut it. I'm gonna need that in a second. So I'm gonna match. So what I searched for was true, comma, where am I searching for that true? In that range that I had. So I'm pasting that, and then I do another comma, and this should be an exact match, and close my parentheses. So now this is an array formula. So if I do Control Shift and Enter, I don't have to do Enter, just Control Shift Enter. So this works. So you see how I get that 16 out of this. Now finally, we have to put this inside of our index function. So I'm gonna take this whole thing, Control X, and do index. So I'm gonna take this range of brands, F4, comma, and then I'm gonna paste my formula right after that, and then do another parentheses to close my index function. And because this is an array formula, Control Shift and Enter, and that gives me the Ford. So if I double click to send this down, see, I was able to find Honda, I was able to find Audi. I was not able to find this one because it's probably not in the list of our brands. Yes, of course it isn't. So this is where we should probably update our range, add that and update our range. Or instead, if I know that I don't have any of, for example, this one, I'll just go and type that, and that should take care of this. So now I have that in my range of values. So I'm getting my results just fine. So that should get me the make out of this. So again, I went online, I grabbed a list of brands. Now, obviously, if you only have like this many, it's a lot easier to just type them. But the assumption is that what if we had 10,000 records or 20,000 records? That would be insane to type this. Now, that would be our workaround. Now, finally, to get the model out of it, basically what I have to do is remove the brand out of this and remove the year out of this. So I can actually get that done by using something like substitute function. I can take my text, say, well, that's my text. My old text used to be this, and let's substitute that by nothing, which is double quotes. So that should remove just the brand out of it. Now we can also remove the year out of it by doing another substitute. So I'm going to do Control X to cut this, and I'm going to use another substitute, and my initial text is going to be that function of substitute that was giving me what it was giving me, and I'm going to do comma, and my old text is going to be the year, which I comma wants to substitute by nothing again. So I hit enter, I get this part. So that gets us basically the model, or whatever we're calling this, but it has all these extra spaces. So to take care of all of those spaces, I'm going to take that entire formula and put it inside of a function called trim, which removes our extra spaces. So paste the function, close parentheses for trim, hit enter, double click to send us down, and that should take care of our problem of makes, the year of the car, and the model of the car. So that's it for this video. So a lot of examples are flash fill and a little bit of an array formula to actually do something a little more complicated, I guess, when you need to do it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.